I think he was tremendously thrilled when Warren came in, and since Warren hadn't had any judicial experience, or indeed any court experience, I think he, being the eternal teacher, was trying to take on this new student. And I think for a while it was a very mellifluous relationship. I think maybe, I don't know how Warren felt, but he may have felt maybe I have something to learn from Frankfurter, but Frankfurter really was not very sensitive in dealing with people. That is, I mean, I don't think he was aware that at some point there was a danger that this would turn into a problem that the chief obviously initially, and my impression was the chief initially was quite willing to be tutored by Frankfurter, to put it crudely, but as time went along, I think, I don't know whether Frankfurter regarded him with sufficient respect and awe and regard to change the relationship to a companion equals, or maybe even non-equals, and of course Warren was the superior. Mm-hmm. So I have a feeling the relationship soured towards the end of the year, and certainly by the next year, as Warren asserted his independence, as he well ought to.
Right. Was he also, other justices obviously were competing for Warren's attention as well? And
yeah, probably not quite as ambitiously as Frankfurter.
Did you have a sense of him, Jackson, as a justice? Was there a reputation?
Well, I think Jackson was very highly regarded in law school as a very creative judge, and particularly because his writing was so stellar. I think, I don't think I knew a lot about him, but then learned more about him because he and Frankfurter were sort of soulmates, and Jackson would come into our office often, and we'd go into Barrett Prettyman's office. So it was I mean, everything I learned down there supported the high regard I had for Jackson before.
Any particular anecdote or two that you recall?
Well, I just remember this, the one I mentioned, this famous phrase of his, if the law clerks got a little too uppity, he would say, remember, you weren't confirmed by Congress.
Jackson Frankfurter, as a friendship, relationship?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I don't know much specifics. Just one would, I think anybody who clerked for Frankfurter was aware that there was a close relationship between those two, mm-hmm. at times of non-agreement, but great respect for each other. And
was that Felix's closest?
I would say so, yeah, certainly our year, yes.
Okay. And did you have an impression of whether it was Jackson's closest?
That I don't know. Okay. I don't really know.
Did you have any sense of Jackson Black or Jackson Douglas as relationships during your time as a clerk?
Well, of course, no, I didn't, but I mean, they seemed to me horses of a different color. You probably know Frankfurter didn't have good relations with Black and Douglas, so somehow I'm assuming that the same thing would apply to Jackson.
You were born where?
Stuttgart, Germany.
When?
When?
Yeah.
1927.
So you have a story here that probably hasn't been asked. I mean, this is Nazi Germany time period.
Uh-huh.
When did you leave?
38.
38. What were the circumstances?
Circumstances were that on Crystal Night, my father was interned, and my mother, who had thought Nazism would blow over in due course, got really alarmed, and fortunately my father had a brother in England who could sponsor us to go to England while we were waiting for our visas to go to the United States, which might have taken 2 or 3 more years. So we all went seriatim to England. I went as an 11-year-old with another young boy, ourselves on the train and boat to England via Holland. And then my parents and my brother and grandmother went in February '39, and my parents shortly thereafter. We all went to England. Mm-hmm. And then were there for about 1.5 years, came to the United States in October 1940.
Did you stay in touch with Frankfurter after your...
Oh, absolutely, definitely. I mean, that was sort of typical of the kind of parent relationship that I mentioned, that he would send you these notes on your anniversary, or somebody said something, he would rip it off and send it to you, and sort of a constant communication.
Did he
And then we had these almost annual dinners of all the law clerks.
Has Frankfurter gotten less than his due, in your view?
Well, I think he seems to be, he sort of rises and falls with the times. I think it also depends where you are, whether you're at Harvard Law School or somewhere else.
Right.
I think at Harvard Law School he's still pretty revered. Mm-hmm. I think, the whole idea of judicial restraint that Frankfurter so strongly believed in has come under considerable pressure, and I think has been less followed by the courts, and sometimes with very understandable reasons. I guess, didn't Frankfurter dissent in the one-man, one-vote case? Yeah. Mm-hmm. That was pretty close to before he left the court.
Yeah.
About 62 or something like that.
I think Baker
And Carr, yeah.
Carr is his last. I think some actually attribute his stroke to the stress of that
Well, that's,
battle.
yeah.
But yeah, that's June of '62.
You gotta be more than a doctor to make a statement like that.
I'm not saying.
I understand.
Today was such, kind of like you open up a window of a unique period of time, 1953 to 54, and we all were sitting out there peering in.
Yeah.
And watching something unfold, and obviously with a theme of Brown.
Yeah. Well, and that may be a good way to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, on second thought, if you just got a bunch of law clerks to interact, it might not be as productive as this was, because there was this, we were all looking at the same picture, and that's when you get discriminating differences. And I think this is an unusual group. I mean, I hadn't seen, I saw Barrett once, maybe about 20 years ago. The others I hadn't seen for 50 years, but there was a lot of respect and regard for different ways of seeing things, which I think was good. I mean, you got some of my colleagues who have more egomaniacal tendencies. This might not work out so well.
Right.